invasion. This British veteran was there that long and bloody morning.
I used a landing craft, landing on the beaches. It was a storm, really, when we first got there. It was very bad, but most of the poor soldiers were seasick. A lot of them was up to their chest in water when they jumped off the boat, so we'd done what we could for them. All we could do was just get them onto the shore or dry land.
160,000 troops landed in waves across beaches in Normandy for what became known as the longest hour in the fight against Nazi Germany.
It's incredibly inspiring hearing the stories of these heroes who served there, who served during World War II, who dropped into Normandy, who jumped off those boats and literally ran towards the fire.
Congresswoman and Iraq War veteran Tulsi Gabbard. Remembrances are taking place throughout the day at ceremonies in France where the military fallen are buried. In Washington, U.S. and Mexican negotiators plan to resume talks Thursday morning aimed at averting President Trump's 5% tariffs on all Mexican goods.
The Mexican government dispatched Foreign Minister Marcelo Ebrard to the White House and an afternoon meeting with Vice President Mike Pence, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, and Acting Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kevin McAleenan. Across the Atlantic, President Trump warning this is no bluff. Either Mexico cuts migration to the U.S. border or tariffs hit Mexican products Monday.
Fox's Rich Edson. And Los Angeles International Airport says all the power is back on at all of its terminals. The hours-long outage caused airlines to delay, divert, or cancel dozens of flights. This is Fox News.
The sky's the limit with Bank Pacific's secure MyCloud banking. You can access your account 24/7 with your smartphone, your computer, your iPad, or any other tablet. You can pay bills, set up alerts, check your balances, wire transfer money. It's never been easier. Enroll online or come on in and see one of our friendly staff. Digital Life, Digital Solutions. Bank Pacific.
Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender, member FDIC. Viva Bank Pacific.
Your home is one of the most important investments you'll make in your life. At Nanbo Insurance, you can rest easy knowing that you're covered with reliable and affordable homeowners insurance. Nanbo makes it easy to protect what matters the most so you can enjoy the moments that matter the most. With Nanbo, you can also save big when you bundle up and insure your car, home, motorcycle, or business. Enjoy great savings up to 50%. Visit nanbo.com or call 477-9754 for more details.
2020 Democratic frontrunner Joe Biden facing backlash over his support for a pro-life amendment.
Joe Biden in South Carolina last month asked about repealing the Hyde Amendment by a member of the American Civil Liberties Union. Hyde nixes federal funding for abortions unless it's a case of rape, incest, or the life of the mother is in jeopardy. Despite saying he would commit to abolishing Hyde, Biden's campaign confirmed to NBC News that he still in fact supports Hyde, but would consider getting rid of it if Roe v. Wade were threatened. Biden is alone in his support of Hyde out of the 24 candidates running. The ACLU tweeted about his rope line exchange using the hashtag #RightsForAll. Even pro-choice advocates are upset with Biden's stance.
Fox's David Spunt. Funerals are getting underway for the 12 victims of the Virginia Beach mass shooting. Among the funerals set for Thursday is one for Catherine Nixon, a compliance manager for the city and wife and mother. A city employee opened fire in a city building Friday before dying in a shootout with police. The public punishment of a Florida teenager sparks a debate about parenting.
A Facebook video making the rounds online shows a mother in Cape Coral, Florida, making her teenage daughter walk near a busy intersection with a sign that reads, "I lied, I humiliated myself and my mother." In the clip, viewers can be heard laughing about it. The woman who shared it calling the tough love parenting at its finest. While some find it humorous, others say the punishment is cruel and dangerous. Cape Coral police were called to the scene. Officers say the mother did have water close by and no one was hurt. Kristen Goodwin, Fox News.
And Taiwan says it's asking Washington to sell it more than 100 tanks along with air defense and anti-tank missile systems. I'm Carmen Roberts and this is Fox News.
Experience the Take Care difference. Take Care members can count on accessing a high-quality, credentialed network of on-island providers, including the convenient one-stop FHP Health Center and urgent care, access to an extensive off-island network of providers, and the island's largest offering of free fitness classes and health education programs. You can count on Take Care to deliver comprehensive, accredited insurance coverage and quality health care when and where you need it. Take Care. Our island, your health plan. Learn more at takecareasia.com.
Hey, it's Mom. Somebody forgot to thaw the chicken, so meet us at Chili's for 2 for $25. Oh, and congratulate your sister for making the basketball team. She's thrilled. Love you. See you at Chili's.
Enjoy 2 full meal combos for $25. An appetizer, 2 mouth-watering entrees like our crispy chicken breast, smoked barbecue quarter leg, or smoked jalapeno cheddar sausage. Served with corn on the cob and french fries. 2 bold combos for $25. A full-on meal deal available nightly for a limited time. Together, we Chili's.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's how we start the program every day, and that's because we really mean it. I've got a little squib here from Tom Knighton over at Bearing Arms website, and here's what Tom is saying today. The title of his article, "Why Talk of Amending Second Amendment is Beyond Stupid." And I guess what he's saying there is that he's acting on a rumor that somehow the CCU is going to pick up the conversation about amending the Second Amendment, or perhaps the governor's anti-machete task force. Why talk of amending Second Amendment is beyond stupid. From time to time, a gun control supporter starts by saying something like, "I support the Second Amendment, but..." Of course, the moment they say the word "but," gun rights advocates brace themselves for the inevitable call for restricting people's Second Amendment rights. There are exceptions, but not many. While we routinely call any gun control measure an attack on the Second Amendment, there's been a growing movement that is trying to attack the Second. Some want to repeal it. Others want to change the text so that it specifically allows gun control to pass Supreme Court scrutiny. A revised Second Amendment could spell out the relationship between public safety and private rights in more detail. It could give clear safeguards for people with no history of legal trouble or mental instability to continue to own guns, while giving more authority to the government to guarantee that only people unlikely to misuse guns would have them. The precise details would have to be worked out through negotiations, but the general approach, rights for safe users, prohibitions for heavy regulations for others, could work. Critics might argue that the prospects for success are too low, or that progress would take too long, but one must ask, compared to what? The nation has been arguing over gun regulation since the dramatic rise in handgun crime in the 1960s. No amount of public pressure or circumstance has compelled gun owners to give in, nor will it. Ordinary people who don't misuse their guns have no reason to agree to give up their security or their hobbies to satisfy someone else's theory about how to combat gun violence. This fact is not going to change, making legislative changes difficult if Heller, that's Heller versus District of Columbia versus Heller, were overturned. Of course, the reasons critics argue the prospects for success are too low is that if you can't get gun control to pass in Congress, how in the hell are you going to go pass a constitutional amendment? Makes sense, doesn't it, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir.
Anti-gunners are so convinced of their righteousness that they can't imagine losing. They've set up the NRA as a boogeyman. Now, I know I have some feeling for what a boogeyman is. Yeah. Having been sort of singled out as a boogeyman myself, right here on my Blood Sport talk show, Real Joe Cruz.
I heard that the boogeyman looks under his bed for Bob Klitzkie before he goes to sleep.
Probably correct, Real Joe Cruz. You have such insight on these matters, yeah. Yeah, the NRA is a boogeyman so that they have someone to blame for their failures. They're oblivious to the fact that large numbers of people don't agree with them. Further, they don't understand how those people are distributed. You see, they love polls that claim most people want some degree of gun control. What they fail to understand is how the American population is distributed. For a constitutional amendment, that's an important fact. The majority of American population is centered in a handful of states, a handful of large urban centers when you get right down to it. So in a world where Congress is fairly evenly split between both parties, no one has more than a slim majority in their respective chambers of Congress, it's virtually impossible to get the 2/3 majority in both chambers to advance an amendment. But let's say that it happened. That's when the population distribution becomes an issue for anti-gunners. Ratifying an amendment requires 3/4 of the states to vote in favor of ratifying it. That means that California, New York, New Jersey will be thrilled to vote for such a measure. That means that while California, New York, and New Jersey will be thrilled to vote for such a measure, it'll need 35 other states to vote in favor of the ratification to become an amendment. This is where anti-gunners' delusion comes into play. In their mind, they believe that somewhere in the neighborhood of half the states that voted for President Trump in 2016 will decide to vote in favor of a constitutional amendment permitting gun control. Sure. Let me spell that word. SUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUUU So here's a question. Tom, if it's not going to happen, why are you wasting time writing about it? You may ask. I'm writing about it because it betrays the level of self-delusion that exists within the anti-gun movement. Anti-gunners are so convinced that they're, quote, on the right side of history and that nothing can stop them. They forget that they are highly concentrated in a few liberal cities while pro-gun voices are found and heard throughout the nation. There are more pro-gun states than anti-gun ones, and that alone would defeat any effort to amend the Second Amendment. Anyone with half a brain can see that this is a lost cause, but anti-gunners think it's a good idea, and we're supposed to believe that they know what they're talking about. Not too likely. So, of course, when the left, the lefties, the progressives, those guys out there with Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, and some of those other radicals stop to think about it, what we need to do is we need to do away with this state thing. That's what the problem is. It's not democratic. Like they want to do away with the electoral college. They don't like the idea that the United States Senate is not one man, one vote, that Wyoming has as many senators as New York. They don't like that. Some would like to abolish the Senate. And I suppose it's just a matter of time before they figure out, if we didn't have to deal with this state thing all the time, we could really enact some good laws. And by the way, Hillary Clinton should have been the president of the United States because she got more votes than Donald Trump. Abolish the Electoral Commission. Change the method to amend the We don't need any of this republic stuff. What we need is a unitary, singular, popular democracy run by the left. And then we can all look forward to our arrivals in utopia. Okay, so, and that's one of the reasons that I hang on to the Second Amendment. It's important for its own sake, but it's also important for fleshing out the thought processes of some of the folks on the other side, the so-called progressives, the anti-conservatives, the folks like Obama when he was running. He said he wanted to fundamentally change the United States of America, and in a lot of ways he did. Before Obama was president, we didn't have to decide. We didn't have a lot of argument about where little Johnny would have to go to pee. But President Obama got involved with that and a lot of other stuff that, it's only a 2-hour program. I couldn't even scratch the surface in reading the list, much less discussing items on the list of the way President Barack Obama changed the fundamental nature of our country, because it wasn't for the good. And now that we have a president that's trying to do some damage control, the left hates it. And, of course, they hate him. Okay, so that's that item of the program for today. I think next, Real Joe Cruz, I have an idea. Let's go from the Second Amendment right straight to Zemi Ikotny. Okay, so here we are, Zemi Ikotny, and today the Daily News says, our view, outsource the medically indigent program. So I'm going to do the usual routine with the Daily News that probably won't take very long. And then I'm going to use my crystal ball and tell you why I think the Daily News and Gannett might back Joe Biden's campaign for the Democrat nomination. And the reason is because they'll instantly see that they have something in common, that the Daily News has something in common with Joe Biden. But let's start out with this editorial. The government of Guam's persistent failure to provide adequate health care for residents was highlighted at a recent public hearing on a bill to appropriate $5.6 million to cover local matching funds for Medicaid, which would translate into more federal funding. Not only do elected officials not maximize the benefit we could reap from the federal health care program, but they fail to adequately fund the local program that provides health care to the island's neediest. The medically indigent program was created in 1984 to ensure that those who lack sufficient income got needed health care. It's to be, quote, the last resort for the provision of medical services for those persons who cannot pay for medical services, according to law. But Maria Teresa Archangel, Chief Human Service Program Administrator at the Department of Public Health and Social Services, says the agency needs millions of dollars to fund the program for the rest of the fiscal year. This isn't exactly shocking news. Guam's elected officials have failed to adequately fund the medical indigent program ever since. The program provides health care to more than 11,000 clients a year with a budget of about $13 million. According to Archangel, Guam Regional Medical Center, Guam Regional Medical City, recently submitted claims to public health, $40 million for Medicaid and $20 million for MIP. A solution is for the government of Guam to outsource the medically indigent program. A June 2010 performance audit showed GovGuam couldn't provide reasonable assurance funds spent on MIP properly benefited recipients and highlighted a lack of checks and balances as well as weak internal controls. Some of the benefits are more generous than GovGuam's health insurance plan and those in managed care plans from the states. There's no caps on coverage. I think what they mean to say is there are no caps on coverage instead of there is no caps on coverage. Way to go, Daily News. GovGuam shouldn't be in the health insurance business. Elected officials should allow a private business or entity, one that understands the insurance business, to run the program. Hawaii does just that. It's a version of the medically indigent program. Its version of the medically indigent program allows participants to choose from 6 private providers. The state still oversees the program, but allows private providers with expertise to manage. GovGuam should do the same. Well, this was a real editorial, right? It stated some facts, only one grammatical error in the editorial. It stated some facts, some law, reached a conclusion, and it had a call to action. And it's about a current, it's a contemporary problem. It's something I could get my teeth in. I could just bite into it a little bit, kind of like you bite on the end of one of those long Holloway suckers back in the day. Yeah. But at least I got my teeth into it a little bit. Now I'm going to explain why I think the Daily News is going to be backing Joe Biden as the Democrat nominee. And this is an article I got out of Town Hall, and it's titled, The Republican National Committee Chair Says Biden's Plagiarism Doesn't Surprise Me. Remember these examples? Former Vice President and 2020 presidential candidate Joe Biden recently released climate change platform looked awfully familiar to Josh Nelson, vice president of the cell phone company Credo Mobile. The paragraph in Biden's climate plan about carbon capture and sequestration includes language that is remarkably similar to items published previously by the Blue-Green Alliance and Carbon Capture Coalition, Nelson said of Biden's proposal. He also appears to have borrowed some language from the Carbon Capture Coalition. For RNC Chair Ronna McDaniel, the apparent plagiarism is no surprise. Where's Gomer Pyle, USMC, when we need him? Here's what Ronna McDaniel, and she was out here, remember, just a couple weeks ago. She was out here. I suspect that she, while she was here, took advantage of local accessibility to Tall Tales, although she didn't call in. Here's what Ronna said. Joe Biden has been plagiarizing longer than I've been alive. Yeah. He started in law school at Syracuse, she explained. It started in law school in Syracuse, she explained. It continued through his failing 1980s presidential campaign, and now we're back at it. Biden admitted to plagiarizing part of a law review journal during his schooling at Syracuse University College of Law. During his 1988 presidential run, Biden lifted portions of a speech by British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher's challenger, Neil Kinnock. Having been exposed as a plagiarist once or twice before, you'd think he'd take more care to be vigilant in his current campaign, McDaniel noted. It's kind of like our system of justice here, you know. He gets caught, and they keep letting him go, and he does it again. Plagiarism is just one of Biden's campaign controversies. The frontrunner is also under fire for flip-flopping on several campaign items. Most recently, the Hyde Amendment, which bans the taxpayer funding of abortions. Biden has some explaining to do for an elderly ACLU activist who asked if he'd abolish the amendment. He told her he would. But as Reagan pointed out today, he's backpedaled. He apparently can't decide whether to cozy up to progressives or appeal to a more moderate base. No wonder nobody is showing up to his events, McDaniel said. He's having less and less of them. It's reminiscent of Hillary Clinton. He does not have enthusiasm on his side in the Democratic field. Yeah, he's not radical. Just the fact that he's a plagiarist ought to get him quite a ways with the left. But he's just not far enough to the left on the so-called social issues to appeal to them. But he is a serial plagiarist, so you could see why he would have a certain appeal to the folks down there at the editorial boardroom at the Daily News. Okay, let's turn to the Post next. The Post has apparently a sarcasm, some sarcasm software in their editing software. Here's the headline on today's editorial: "Safety is no concern, and that's no exaggeration." We pray this never happens again, and our elected officials need to ensure that it doesn't. On Tuesday, men with machetes and blunt objects started swinging their weapons wildly, attempting to get into drivers' vehicles, and then took their frustrations out on the vehicles with enough force that you can see some parts of the metal cut through, according to several people who witnessed the harrowing events. Let's see, who witnessed the harrowing? Was that Melissa Savaris? She wasn't there? Oh, gosh, the way she's been talking, I thought she probably was there from the start to the finish of the whole thing, you know, Real Joe Cruz. Yeah. Former senator and here we go again. Former senator and former Department of Public Safety chief Judy Guthert said whether it was one man with a machete or five, it's too many. And she's right. Now, come on, Post. You guys know better than this. Judy Guthert was not Department of Public Safety chief. There was no chief at the Department of Public Safety. There was a director. And the director was not called the director of the Department of Public Safety, like you keep getting it wrong, like Ed Byrne is the director of the Department of Administration. He's not. He's the director of administration. Judy was the director of public safety back in the day. And within the Department of Public Safety, I think at that time there were only two departments, each one of which was headed by a chief. The fire chief headed the fire department, and the police chief headed the police department. Judy was the director. She was the director of public safety. You know, people read your stuff here, and when you don't get these things right, you know, I've used this example before, but it's like when you get on an airplane and you're flying from here to somewhere else, and you finish your meal and you can't get the tray tables to stay up. And you wonder if the tray table doesn't work right, how about the rudder and the ailerons and the autopilot and the other important parts of the plane? You'd think you could fix the really easy stuff. So, you know, if you can't get this one right, she's not the chief. Okay, well, I hear Dave Brubeck's Take 5 playing in the background. I'll come back here and wrap up the post.
It's important to have claims process that works for you. At Guahan Insurance Services, we make things simple and convenient. Same door you walk in to purchase your insurance is the same door you open to file your claim. We can't pretend that the car insurance claims process is fun, but we can promise a hassle-free and speedy recovery without any runarounds. For your home, auto, and business insurance, visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center on Marine Corps Drive in Tamuning. Don't forget to like us on Facebook or give us a call at 475-1162 or text 929-SAVE. That's 929-7283.
I've always had an interest in the subject of creativity. I love reading the stories of creative people, their path to success, and the methods they use to bring out their talent. I'm Jerry Roberts, and at 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show, I'm going to give you a little-known way to be creative by trying to put a cap of sorts on your creativity.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at GuamTraining.com. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
And now, back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the one radio show politicians don't want you to listen to. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
And probably the one radio show that politicians don't like to listen to themselves. Okay, back to the editorial. Judy, talking about Judy Guthers, she's also right when she says people don't feel safe anymore. Thieves are getting bolder, robbing people's homes in the daylight hours while people are home, pulling into parking lots and breaking car windows to steal personal belongings, and tearing down walls to break into local businesses. And hearing Guthert say the culprits in Tuesday's incident on University Drive in Magilo may have been drug-related raises even more concern. It feels as though the island's values, as well as the feeling of safety and of community, have been overrun by fear of burglaries and violence. Calling the incident, quote, exaggerated, or accusing the media of, quote, blowing it out of proportion is hardly a solution. The fact is more and more island residents are living in fear and having to police our communities and protect ourselves, not because police officers aren't doing their jobs, because there simply aren't enough of them on the streets. We hope that the upcoming meetings on public safety pave the path to a safer Guam, one where parents don't fear allowing their children to go out and play in the yard. Tourists can walk down the streets without fear of being robbed at gunpoint, where Tan Maria doesn't have to worry that someone is going to force their way into her home, and Ton Jose isn't worried when walking to the corner store that a drunken or drug loiterers are going to ask him for money or give him trouble. Guam Police Department Chief Steven Ignacio has made efforts to put more officers on patrol, but the department is severely understaffed and needs the appropriate budget allocation and resources to increase their presence and visibility in our villages. Almost daily, we report on plea bargains that have been struck, reducing sentences for Guam's criminals or repeat offenders who were released from jail awaiting trial, only to be arrested again for theft, assault, or drug possession, requiring police to go out and chase down the same people they arrested a month or two before. And the police are getting tired. And elected officials, so are your constituents. And no, that's not an exaggeration. All right, pretty well done, Post. Pretty well done. Enough sarcasm in there, perhaps to satisfy the average member of our radio listening audience who by now has built up a certain tolerance to sarcasm, being exposed to it so often, so they've got to get a dose of it from somewhere else. And today they got it in the Post editorial. So Real Joe Cruz, here it goes. The coveted blue star. Post did a good job today, and I'm not exaggerating on that one. All right, so that's the end of that. And from there, we go to the card, and I have an unscheduled event on the card here. This one is called Ken Leon Guerrero versus Angel Sablon, and the ring, the boxing ring where this one occurred, was on the top-rated #1 talk show, morning talk show in the Western Pacific. That would be the Ray Gibson Show. And I have a short description of what happened this morning from the poet laureate of Tall Tales. And I guess I ought to cheer him on a little bit by saying, "Ole, Cinco de Andrew." And here's what Andrew writes. 3 cheers for Ken Leon Guerrero. He's fierce as the greatest torero. The corrupt mares he gores, with facts and truth he scores. We gratefully tip our sombreros. Talking about the verbal shootout between Angel Sablon and Ken this morning. So that's why I say, ole! And today is Cinco de Andrew. So that's kind of the unscheduled item on today's card. And we go on, this is what I got on the card for today. Governor Lou Leon Guerrero versus fake news. Kelly Clark versus Tall Tales, which is kind of a perpetual item, isn't it? And then Tall Tales versus the right wing. And then Lou and Josh versus the unwoke, which was on the calendar yesterday, but I didn't get to it. And then the next one is something that would perhaps appeal to you, Real Joe Cruz. I don't remember if you went to college or not. Probably not, huh? You did? When you went to college, did you live in a house?
No, I think I was a dormer.
You were a dormer. Okay. Well, this next item then will appeal to you because it's Steve Dormer versus Robert Hoffman. And that's an interesting one, too, because in German, Hof means house or building. You know, the Bahnhofstrasse is the railroad station street. So it's a house. On the one hand, we've got a houseman, and on the other hand, we've got a dormer. I suppose you're going to root for the dormer, huh? Yeah, being a dormer yourself?
Yes, sir.
All right. And then I've got Marsh versus Magellan and Hilaan San Nicolas versus the Outrigger. Bavakov bites the dog. I probably won't get to those. Okay, starting right out here with Lou Leon Guerrero versus fake news. And here's how it goes. From a machete attack to the media under attack. And this comes from KUM. This is a Chris Barnett piece. Adloop is saying news outlets blew yesterday's machete madness out of proportion. This after an emergency meeting to address the matter in Manguilo, the Manguilo on Tuesday incident. I think the media blew it out of proportion, Governor Lou Leon Guerrero said. And by the way, now they had this meeting, and they had some people from the mayor's council and some senators, the governor, the lieutenant governor, various other distinguished persons, and I think they met in executive session. That's what I read somewhere, that they met in executive session. So no doubt they had someone standing outside the door of the chambers where they met, mumbling the mantra, personnel matters, personnel matters, personnel matters. We're dealing with personnel matters, so we have to go into executive session. Well, personnel matters is one of those phrases that now requires translation. It's one of those combination of words where you know what each of the words mean. You know what personnel is. It doesn't mean personal. Personnel is a collective, meaning a group of people engaged in a particular undertaking. As an example, if you were here at in the luxurious studios of The Point, you would find that there are several personnel on duty today, many of whom are sitting behind microphones. And The Point does have personnel policies. And then each of those people who make up the category of personnel is a person. And there are things about each one of those persons that we could say are personal. For instance, what's my favorite food for breakfast? Well, I could tell you that, but it's kind of personal. But it's not personnel. What I have for breakfast is not a personnel matter. But anyhow, that's what personnel means. It doesn't mean personal. And then matter, you know what matter means. It's a thing or an idea or concept or whatever. So nowadays, when you hear the words personnel matters, what it means is that we don't want anybody to listen to us because we're going to say some really stupid things. That's the new meaning for personnel matters. And this little Chautauqua down at Adelope is certainly no exception. I think the media blew it out of proportion, Governor Leanne Guerrero said. Even FSM Consul General Teresa Philippin throwing the media under the bus. I think it was blown out of proportion, she said. Even Mayor's Council of Guam president, she's the president. She's not just a village mayor. Melissa is the president of the Mayor's Council. Even Mayor's Council of Guam president and Dededo Mayor Melissa Savares went in on the media. I think it was an exaggerated incident, she said. Okay, so we start right out, and the poor governor, she's only been in office since January, and she's already having to start to deal with fake news. Now, I remember during the campaign that she said, you know, talking about, I will work with Donald Trump. I'll do whatever I have to with Donald Trump to make sure that, you know, I benefit Guam. So apparently one of the things she's going to do for Donald Trump is take a little of the pressure off him and his commenting on fake news, because she's now found fake news right in her own backyard. Blew it out of proportion. But if the media blew it out of proportion, why was an emergency meeting held this morning to figure out how to address what has become an all too familiar story in the news? Little bit of inconsistency there. It was blown out of proportion. It was exaggerated. So we're going to just kind of treat it not any more than we would just business as usual, except that we're going to have this big meeting here. We're going to have this media event. If the media blew it out of proportion, why was an emergency meeting held this morning to address what has become an all too familiar story in the news? What about the eyewitness account of former Senator Judy Gutherts? Was Gutherts blowing it out of proportion? Quote, former Senator Judy Gutherts felt her true feeling about how she felt, and of course being attacked by a machete as a passerby is a very frightening situation, the governor said. Even, you know, I guess the part about blowing it out of proportion didn't make the news. Guthert said she saw 4 to 5 young men attacking several cars with machetes this morning. This morning, Guam Police, here we go again, Guam Police Department Chief Steve Ignacio. He's not the Guam Police Department chief. He's the chief of police. Said there were 3 or 4 men involved. 2 have since been arrested, and the other was stabbed in the stomach. The governor said the victims in the case probably didn't think the attack was exaggerated. They were definitely disturbed and upset about it. They feared for their safety of their lives, Leon Guerrero said. The MAGA Haga instructed Chief Ignacio to step up village patrols. That's great. Step up village patrols. Make sure that your understaffed department steps up its patrols, and worked on plans to hold meetings at the village level with FSM civic and church leaders, mayors, and other officials. The first meeting will be held in Manila. The governor said reaching out to the FSM community at the village level would help address what causes behavior like the Manila machete attack. So I suppose the governor is going to go to all of these meetings, and she's going to assemble as many FSM civic and church leaders as she can, and then she's going to say, please, FSM leaders, tell your folks to just say no to machetes. And that should do it. Yeah. Because you got to blame this on the machetes. If they didn't have machetes, they'd probably be model citizens. But the contradiction seemed obvious. If we blew it out of proportion, does that mean there isn't anything to worry about? I'm not saying we shouldn't be alarmed, the governor said. Definitely, we are alarmed. That's why I asked for this meeting. I am alarmed. I am alarmed for the safety of these people. I am alarmed for the fact that these 2 individuals are known to the police. They are recurrent offenders. I'm alarmed by the fact that maybe it's a system dysfunction. How do I count the ways? Governor Leon Guerrero said, how do I count the ways that I'm alarmed? Yeah, well, I'm alarmed, Governor, because you're alarmed. It's not your job to be alarmed. It's your job to take care of these things that cause the alarm bells to go off. Like the governor, the FSM General Counsel is initiating a response to the event despite saying it blown out of proportion. The FSM Consulate Office is very concerned, and we're very saddened by this unfortunate turn of events, Philippon said. We're working with the governor's office and other organizations here on island on how we can reach out to the FAS communities and see how we can alleviate some of these occurrences. Boy, she is, she's a diplomat. She's Consul General for the FSM here. We are working with the governor's office and other organizations here on island on how we can reach out to the FAS communities and see how we can alleviate some of these occurrences. Yeah. Despite what seems like an increase in violence crimes like home invasions, robberies, sexual assaults, and machete attacks, the governor says it's not as bad as it seems. It's very important to assure the community that we still live in a safe community. Now, how do we know it's a safe community? You know how we know, Real Joe Cruz? How do we know?
Tall tells us on the air, sir.
Well, of course. I mean, that almost goes without saying. But as far as what the governor's saying here, we know we live in a safe community because the governor said so. And the reason, perhaps, that some people are a little bit shaky on that is because the media exaggerated the machete incident. So you've got an exaggerating media, a blowing it out of proportion media on the one hand, and then a safe community on the other. You get all of this straight from the governor's mouth. You don't even have to listen to tall tales for an interpretation. That's what she said. The governor also is calling on the community to step up and help, of course. She asks island residents to be vigilant and form neighborhood watch groups and report suspicious activity to GPD. Meanwhile, Committee Chair on Public Safety, Pito Terlahi, plans to call a roundtable meeting. Whoa! That'll get them. I'll bet you those young kids I'll bet you they took, when they heard about this, Pito Terlahi's calling a roundtable meeting. Let's go down to the Tassi and throw our machetes in the ocean.
That's when you know it's serious.
Yeah, when Pito Terlahi calls for a roundtable meeting, you know that there's going to be a lot of you-know-what hitting the fan as far as these young miscreants are concerned. Okay, I got another break coming up here, about 10 minutes to the big halftime show, and then we'll come back to this one.
Family Finance has been serving the people of Guam since 1959, and they'll continue to be there for you in the years to come. Whether you're looking to get a personal loan for that summer vacation or paying off those long overdue bills, Family Finance has got you covered. Apply for a personal loan from $1,000 up to $3,600 by calling Family Finance in Agutya at 475-4545, Upper Tumon at 647-5626, or in Dededo 633-4473. Family Finance, serving the people of Guam since 1959.
In illness and in wellness, Calvo's Select Care is health care that is there for you. That's why over 80% of the Guam medical community places their trust and insures with us. We offer our members wellness and fitness programs for a healthier lifestyle and provide a comprehensive medical network on and off island to help members from unexpected illnesses. Contact Calvo's Select Care today for more information.
Yeah, so I left off with a really exciting part of this entire article. Committee Chair on Public Safety, Pito Terlahi, plans to call a roundtable meeting to address the incident in Manilo. Wow. Among those he's inviting include the Attorney General, the Governor and Lieutenant Governor, the Mayor's Council, FSM elders, as well as Superior Court Presiding Judge Alberto Lamarena, the cook down at Chodi's. Let's see, who else has he got coming out here? The Tall Tales regulators. He's going to have quite a group down there. Terlahi hopes to open dialogue on issues FSM citizens face. Issues like, people who have cars that are machete-proof. Maybe we should ban machete-proof cars. No more importing cars that you can't break into with a machete. Additionally, Senator Terlahi plans to express his concerns to the federal government. He says although the Compact of Free Association monies are intended to stabilize the conditions of FSM citizens, this is not the case. DOI's failure to consider the impacted costs to Guam must be brought up again. Yeah, well, I tell you what, I take a whole lot of comfort from the fact that Senator Pito Terlahi is going to talk to the federal government, and he's going to hold this big roundtable hearing. So I think the executive branch here, the governor, has done exactly the right thing. Well, maybe exactly what we would have expected her to do, right? When an apparent crisis came along, the first thing she did was she invoked the fake news defense. This was blown out of proportion. That's the first thing she did. And And then the next thing she did is she puts together a media event, gets a lot of people to come down to Adelup, puts them in executive session. I don't know if she told the media that the reason that the media couldn't come in was because they were discussing personnel matters, because that always works. So she does that. She gets some photo ops out of it. Does absolutely nothing. Scheduled another photo op for Manila where, again, she can go out and posture, open her mouth, show everybody out there how flexible she is, that she can open her mouth and stick her foot right into it without missing a beat. More photo ops. So, we do this as long as we can get some earned media out of it. Then the next step is going to be to appoint a task force. Now, let's see, who would be on the task force? The chief of police, right? The fire chief, the director of corrections. Yeah, and on and on and on. Appoint a task force that's so large and unwieldy that they won't even all be able to get together for a meeting at any given time. Appoint a task force, and then, of course, you got another good photo op with the governor addressing the task force. And then find the most articulate person in the task force who can say the right things about how great it is that we have a proactive governor that's appointing a task force to deal with this particular problem. You work that for a couple more news cycles, it will sooner or later die, and by that time, you're hoping that everyone forgot about Judy and the machetes. Perhaps everyone will have, except for Judy. But we're doing what I expected to happen. Pretty much what happened. You notice the L word was never a part of my description here. I don't see any leadership here at all. As an example, things are so serious, I'm declaring martial law and a curfew. Well, that would be the wrong thing to do, but it would be doing something. But as far as leadership is concerned here, Real Joe Cruz, could you comment on what Governor Leon Guerrero has done?
It's not what she did, sir. It's what she didn't do.
It's what she didn't do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Boy, I'll tell you, Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes really called it with that barking dog, didn't he? Yeah. Okay, so that's Leon Guerrero and fake news, living up to every expectation that I might have had on the deal. And I have used my crystal ball to predict what's going to happen next. Okay, the next item on the card here is Clark. That would be Kelly Clark Esquire versus Tall Tales. But I notice I've only got a couple minutes before the big halftime show starts. So let me just cruise through the Facebook comments and see what we've got for comments here on Facebook concerning the topics that have been discussed. Nate horns in with some really good advice. He says, "Don't exaggerate, Bob." And then he takes a line from Jack Webb on the old Dragnet program when Jack Webb would say, "The facts, ma'am, just the facts." And then we've got Joe Cruz. This isn't you now. This is not the real Joe Cruz. This is another Joe Cruz. Joe Cruz, choose your words wisely today, Bob. I'm looking to sue. One wrong word or misplaced Latin phrase, and I'll sue you. Yeah, okay, well, thanks for that. That's fair warning. Okay, here comes that big halftime show you've all been waiting for, and I'll be back in 6 or 7 minutes. Do a little more Facebooking, and then we'll get to Clark versus Tall Tales.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
The world remembers the longest hour. I'm Carmen Roberts, Fox News. On this day, 75 years ago, the first American and Allied troops landed on beaches in Normandy, France, as the D-Day assault against the Nazis began.
Among them, Vincent Unger.
No one thinks that they're going to be the casualty.
Now 96, he recalls optimism among comrades as they sailed from England.
But when they saw the activity when we were going in, you couldn't see nothing but smoke and flame and things flying up in the world. Then it changed. You weren't that confident.
The massive Allied invasion turned the tide of World War II, but cost thousands of lives. In Normandy, Simon Owen, Fox News.
President Trump will arrive at Normandy at this hour to join other world leaders for memorial ceremonies this morning. The clock is ticking on President Trump's threat to impose tariffs on Mexico. Talks between the U.S. and Mexico will continue in Washington this morning.
After high-level talks at the White House with the Vice President and Secretary of State, Mexican Foreign Minister Marcelo Ebrard told reporters they actually did not discuss the tariffs that are so controversial. Instead, he admitted the sole focus was on immigration. Pence and Pompeo were pushing him on what Mexico is actually proposing to do in terms of cracking down more on migrants traveling from Central America to America through Mexico.
Fox's Ed Henry. President Trump tweeted from Europe yesterday that he intends to move ahead with the 5% tariffs on Mexico on Monday, unless a deal is reached on immigration. Stocks posted back-to-back gains as investors pinned their hopes on a Fed rate cut. The Dow jumped 207 points yesterday. The Nasdaq rose 48. This is Fox News.
Join Ray Gibson as he celebrates 40 years on the air.
Can you dig it?
40 years already? Hi, I'm doing the big broadcast from BMW's brand new showroom at Atkins Kroll, and I want you to join in on the fun. Come on by and see us do the show live and in person. And since it's a party, we've got all kinds of super goodies to give away. United Airlines is letting me give away 2 tickets to Japan. And your next trip to the Philippines, we've got your hotel accommodations covered with goodies from Resort World Manila.
Mabuhay.
It's been a great ride, and this is a great excuse to get caught up with some of our favorite guests and friends of the show.
Ray. Good morning, Ray.
Yo, Ray.
Tune in Friday, June 7th, or check out the Points Facebook live feed, provided and produced by Shooting Star Productions.
Ray Gibson's 40th anniversary show is brought to you by AK BMW and Shooting Star Productions, with special thanks to United Airlines, Resorts World Manila, Nanbo's Insurance, GPSI, and Coast 360 Federal Credit Union.
President Trump has called climate change a hoax, although he's walked that back recently. Now, senior U.S. military and intelligence officials are warning climate change poses real threats to national security.
These include economic damage, threats to human health, energy security, and food security. We expect no country to be immune to the effects of climate change over 20 years.
Dr. Rod Schoonover at the State Department says a shortage of food and water will lead to political turmoil, and the melting ice cap will enable Russia to cut new northern sea routes. Top congressional Democrats talk more about impeaching President Trump, but Speaker Nancy Pelosi is using a different word.
Growing tensions between House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Gerald Nadler, who is calling for Pelosi to allow him to begin an impeachment inquiry against President Trump. But Politico reporting Pelosi told Nadler, quote, "I don't want to see him impeached. I want to see him in prison." Meanwhile, the top Republican on the Judiciary Committee, Doug Collins, says lawmakers should be focused instead on stopping Russia from interfering with American elections. In Washington, Sean Lanchel, Fox News.
The Raptors and the Warriors went into Game 3 of the NBA Finals last night, tied at 1 game each.
Puts it in. Danny Green from downtown. Back-to-back threes. And this equals the largest lead of the game.
That's Mike Breen on ABC. Toronto jumped out early and held on 123 to 109. Danny Green with 6 3-pointers. Kawhi Leonard had 30 for the Raptors. Steph Curry did all he could do for Golden State with 47 points in the loss. Tim McMaster, Fox News.
And Toronto takes a 2-1 lead in the NBA series. And some students who lost their homes during last year's massive wildfires in Northern California will graduate today, receiving their diplomas from Paradise High School. All but 80 of the school's 980 students lost their homes. I'm Carmen Roberts, and this is Fox News.
Hey, welcome to this Subway ad for the new club collection. How do you want it?
I'll take a book club.
Absolutely.
So, last week we sunk our teeth into Subway's meaty new release, the Steak Club.
I didn't finish it yet.
Oh, not again, Sandra. This week, it's the new Southwest Chicken Club, also by Subway. No spoilers, but there's a tasty twist.
Jalapeno cheddar bread and guacamole?
Sandra, get out. Subway, make it what you want.
Good ending.
Limited time only at participating restaurants.
When it comes to power and performance, nothing compares to Dodge. And right now at Cars Plus in Mighty, you can save thousands on many Dodge vehicles in stock during our Dodge Performance Days. Like a new 2019 Grand Caravan SE, save $4,250, or save $6,150 on a new Durango SXT. Looking for more power? Take home a new Charger SXT Plus today for only $37,689, or save over $7,000 on a new Challenger GT. Get more power and performance at Cars Plus in Mighty during Dodge Performance Days. Cars Plus, driven by you.
What a great halftime entertainment it is. And it gets better every week, every day, every hour. Yeah, I know it. I know many of folks out there in our international radio listening audience just can't wait for that hour to arrive. 5 o'clock, halftime. So here we are, halftime, heading down into the second half of Tall Tales, another exciting, informative, educational episode of Tall Tales. Right on up till 1800, 6 o'clock. And I'm going to spend a little more time here with the Facebook before I go into the next item on the card. Let's see, where did I leave off here? I've got Nate horning in and say, don't exaggerate, Bob, just the facts. And then Joe Cruz, but it's not the real Joe Cruz, it's another real Joe Cruz telling me that choose my words wisely, Bob, because he's looking to sue. One wrong word or one misplaced Latin phrase, and I'll sue you, he says. Yeah. All right. And then we got Brad Hewitt. Don't give them too many facts. May hurt feelings and end up in court. And then, we got Tom Van Ingen here. I wonder, real Joe Cruz, if you opened up the Tom line, I hope so. And then Nate horns in again and says, I was eating popcorn and enjoying the fight this morning. I guess that would have been Ken Leon Guerrero and Angel Sablon. And we got Tedo. All repeat offenders and drug dealers should be expelled for life from Guam, period. Problem solved. Okay, Tedo. And then we got James Howard, Tall Tales Regulators for Life. It's a good group, you know. There's in Canada, there's the Royal Mounted Police. There was in North Africa, there was the French Foreign Legion, the Texas Rangers, and now we've got the Tall Tales Regulators, kind of all the same, cut out of the same cloth. And we got James Howard, Tom. I guess James Howard wonders if did you open the Tom line? Let's see who I got on the line here. It's Troy. It's not Tom. Okay, I'll be with you in just a second here, Troy. And then I've got Nate horning in, telling us that we need Batman. James Howard says a stern letter to the United Nations should work. Yeah, I'm surprised the governor didn't think of that. A stern letter to the United Nations. And then James Howard. Wow, we got 19 viewers. We're moving up, yes. And then, let's see, James Howard, welcome our new prospects. Please send Judge Bob $19.95 for monthly membership dues to Tall Tales Regulators Posse. Pay any time before the end of the month. Bitcoin only, so we don't have to pay taxes. The commercial aspects of Tall Tales. Andrew Bainham. The hungry moon is, as you were, the honeymoon is over, and the novelty being the first mega haga is getting old. It seems time to get to work for the people, and that ain't no exaggeration. That's what Andrew says. Yeah, it's interesting. We got through this whole machete and the Manguilo machete deal, and no one saw fit to mention that Lilian Guerrero was the first female governor of Guam. That's pretty amazing. And Jose Martinez didn't come online to remind us that Lilian Guerrero is the first openly pro-abortion governor of Guam. And I got James Howard, a stern letter to the UN. Nate horns in and said, we need Batman. Brad Hewitt. It's always, it's always good to have Esquire versus Esquire. It sounds like a magazine fight. J. Edmund Santana, official stats about crime on Guam is hard to obtain. Why? Good question. James Adkins, Bob needs to start a Patreon account. Okay, very good. So much for the Facebook comments, and let's see, we've got, is this the Troy or a Troy? You don't know. It's a Troy. Huh? Afternoon, Troy.
Hi, Bob.
Hi.
This is A. Troy. A. Troy Torres.
The Troy Taurus. The Troy. Hello, good afternoon, Troy.
Hi, good afternoon, Bob. First, thanks for sending me that release or that information about that attorney Kelly Clark.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like the singer or whatever. I wanted to laugh about it, and I just wanted to say thank you for sticking up for people's rights to speak up, especially when it's about the government of Guam. And for this woman to make a threat like this, I think you're absolutely right. It creates a chilling effect that scares people away from publicly voicing their comments about things. And, you know, I'm one of those people who doesn't really care much about that whole story about the raises. Like, I just don't think the amount is a drop in the bucket compared to everything else that they do over there, over at GPA and GWAs. And I happen to like some of those managers and think that they are worth that money. It's just how the CCU went about it that flips me out, and I agree with you about that whole issue. So I just wanted to say thank you for being on top of it and for scaring the pants off of that scaredy pants attorney.
Well, thank you very much, Troy. I'm working on a mailing list. I guess you're on my mailing list. So when I do send out those from Bob's, I give them a little bit of circulation, not like the kind that you have with your blog, of course, but that's the way it goes, right?
Oh, well, actually, I'm sure you guys have a great circulation, so. But thank you, Bob. That's really why I wanted to call.
Okay.
Say thank you and to laugh at that really stupid set of remarks by Kelly Clark, thinking that we're just not supposed to have what the law requires as publicly available information just because Kelly Clark is offended.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it, Troy?
Well, it's absurd.
It is. It really is.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Bob.
Well, thanks for calling in, Troy, and thanks for the kind words.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, so Kelly Clark, not to be confused with Kelly Marsh, or is it Marsha Kelly? I went to high school with a guy named Mike Kelly, yeah. But I don't think I ever ran into anybody. I've known a fair number of Kellys in my life, but it's only recently that I found Kellys whose first name was Kelly rather than their surname. But I don't know if this will probably really get me in trouble now, what I'm going to say next about Kelly Clark. Well, Troy referred to Kelly Clark as this lawyer and she. Yeah. Of course, we know what pronoun he should have used, right? Which would have been what?
They.
They, yeah. I don't know if this is probably politically incorrect, but Kelly Clark is actually a male, not a female. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know who is going to sue me for saying that. You know, I suppose there'll be the LBGTQ whatever group will be offended by my thinking that it's actually important to properly ascribe the right sex to a person. But anyhow, that's the way it goes. Okay, so Kelly Clark, there was an article in the Post based on the email that he sent to me threatening to sue, and then he updated. He declined to comment when before the article ran, and then later on he came back and sent something to the Post, which they inserted in the online edition. Of course, you wouldn't find it in the hard copy of the Post or even their e-edition, but this is what it says. My comment is this. GWA has presented a 5-year capital improvement plan and a rate case of $260 million to the public for the past 2 months in public meetings and in the paper. That rate case and CIP will be presented to the CCU this evening for approval, and no one in the media is talking about that. Wow, hurt feelings, huh? $260 million of infrastructure work to benefit the island isn't news. But whether or not I'm going to sue a radio host is. Pathetic priorities, in my opinion, Clark said. Pathetic priorities. Yeah. From one of the key officers at the Waterworks Authority, thinking that it's pathetic priorities for the news media to even mention, I guess, the fact that he had threatened to sue someone, a radio talk show host, because the radio talk show host had the temerity of petitioning the CCU for papers that arose in an illegal meeting that Kelly Clark didn't interdict, and then telling me that I should never comment about those papers. Kind of like anybody else can, just not me. And the priority should have been on the $260 million capital improvement plan. I would agree. I think it's much more important that the CCU is working on this plan for the waterworks. It's going to have a whole lot more effect on the lives of people on Guam than whether or not Clark is going to sue me. In fact, it's the kind of thing that you might have thought that a sense of priority might have caused Clark, if he wanted to speak out and take a public position on something, that might have been it. Instead of kvetching about his personal, what he says is his personal information. So when he uses the phrase pathetic priorities, in my opinion, he and I are exactly on the same wavelength. Yeah, it's pretty pathetic. Especially, I've got his evaluation right here. And, of course, you do, too, if you read the Post, because it was on the front page of the Post a couple days ago. You could have downloaded it and read it, printed it, framed it, made a paper airplane out of it, whatever you wanted to do with it, because it's a public document. And it's interesting that Clark doesn't want he doesn't want me talking about it, because it puts his general manager in a good light. All the talk about, people, managers not doing evaluations, giving salary increases willy-nilly, etc. This is the first sentence in the evaluation for Clark. And it's from the general manager. It says, pursuant to CCU Resolution 21-FY 2018 and the adopted Executive Officer Evaluation Policy, Section 4, Paragraph F, the following evaluation is hereby submitted for your consideration for the subject individual. So although Joey Duane said, yeah, we adopted that resolution, but we haven't been doing it, we forgot, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Here's Miguel Berdallo, the manager of the Waterworks Authority, doing exactly what he was supposed to have done. But Clark doesn't want anybody to know that, I guess. And then I look at I'm not going to go through the whole thing. It's just not that interesting, which is the reason that I haven't mentioned it before. It's just not good talk radio to go into this kind of standard bit of language. Even though I suppose, well, in fact, there wasn't much reason to go into it because Kelly Clark kind of stole the march on me. The news became not what kind of evaluation do these people get, but who is Kelly Clark going to sue? Because the CCU voted to release this evaluation. That became the news. So here's the last paragraph in Kelly Clark's evaluation. Overall, General Counsel has been a great benefit to the authority and to management specifically. He has significantly exceeded expectations in the performance of his duties, and I recommend a commensurate adjustment to compensation should the commission concur. Yeah, I can really understand why Clark didn't want anybody to see this, because it really makes Berdallo look like he knows what he's doing as the general manager of the Waterworks Authority. What is it that I say from time to time? If you live long enough, you're liable to see almost anything. And this is a classic example of seeing almost anything. Okay, I'm looking out of the corner of my eye here, and I see a post. We have the right to voice. Oops. Let me see here. Where did that go? This is from James Howard, one of the regulators, right? We have the right to voice our opinion, Mr. Clark, and you can't stop the First Amendment or tall tales regulators. Well, it's bad enough, that he's kind of crossed swords with tall tales on this, but now it's the tall tales regulators. Talk. Yeah. Okay, is there anything else on comment here? Yeah. James Howard. Another Joe Cruz. He says, another Joe, not you, but another Joe Cruz. He says, Bob, you're getting sued now. And he says, talk. Wow. Yeah. Okay, so the next item on the card is Tall Tales versus the right wing. I got a caller here. Okay, I was wondering if you were ever going to open the Tom line, Real Joe Cruz. Okay, is this our Tom? Tom, Real Tom? Yeah, okay. Good afternoon, Tom.
Good afternoon, sir. After all these incidents at the CCU, the Samoro Land Trust, that pay raise again at the Transit Authority, you would think by now somebody from the administration will already be organizing a refresher course for all of our elected officials and all of our high-ranking government officials to have a refresher course on government ethics and about the open government law, about the Sunshine Law. Remember that Judy used to instruct that, right? Why don't somebody order her to organize another class again? It seems like they need a refresher course every once in a while to keep reminding our elected officials about the law.
I guess this time around, Tall Tales turned out to be the refresher course, Tom.
Yeah, but it's after the violation, you know.
True enough.
We need preventive measures.
You're right.
So it will never happen again, hopefully, you know.
And I read that at the beginning of the Leon Guerrero administration, she had a workshop on Saturday to bring directors up to speed. Now, maybe the CCU folks, not being part of her administration, were saying we don't need no stinking workshop. We're the CCU.
Yeah, and also remember that pay raise that the legislature gave themselves. The legislature, every time we elect, every time a new legislature gets inaugurated into office, they should first have a refresher course on the law, just to make sure that any new legislator down there knows the law. And even the old legislators, sometimes they forget the law. You know, it's embarrassing that they are lawmakers down there. They're supposed to make the law, but some of them don't know the law.
True enough, Tom.
It's already been made. Sometimes they introduce a bill that it will be a redundant. There's a law already existing on a bill that they're introducing.
You know what I think is really funny, funny, is that senators will introduce bills that show they don't know what they're doing, because they'll have a bill, and at the second to the last section in the bill is, this bill is effective upon adoption. Well, all bills are effective, you know, when the governor signs them. So that's just a waste of ink. And then they have this fancy severability clause, which, if anything, is just dumb and counterproductive. But, you know, you see it all the time. And to me, that's like putting a little note on the top of your bill. I really don't know what I'm doing here when I'm putting together these bills. So don't pay too much attention to the substance of the bill, because obviously I don't know what I'm doing.
You know, on another subject, all of those criminals that are committing crimes on us here in Guam, like those, for example, those Mercedes-wielding idiots up there in Manila. You know, they're victimizing all of us, not just the vehicles that were damaged there by the Mercedes. They're really victimizing all of us, all of the people of Guam. Especially that one poor guy that was injured by the Mercedes, he had to go to the hospital, and we don't know if that poor guy can afford the medical treatment that he got.
True enough.
Or we might have to pay him under the medically illicit program, for example.
Yeah.
You know, so, and also all of those vehicles that were damaged, poor Judy Gutters and all those other vehicles that were damaged, their insurance probably won't be able to repair them, because the damage is less than the deductible. So they have to pay it out of their own pocket.
Very possible, Tom.
We're all been victimized, and then if the insurance covers some of it, every time somebody makes a claim against any insurance here in Guam, all of the insurance companies, you know, they're in cahoots. Probably they'll probably raise the premium up again, because that's how they survive. Every time they have to pay out, you know, to their clients, they probably want to recover that money by raising premiums. So we're all been victimized.
True enough, Tom.
how can we, the people, just get restitution back from these idiots?
I think we have to go to these town meetings that the governor's organizing. There's going to be one in Manila, and she's going to have a cast of thousands out there, you know. Wouldn't that work?
Yeah. But, you know, I myself wasn't up there. My vehicle wasn't damaged. I wasn't attacked by a machete. But I am still victimized because I was endowed by my Creator with certain inalienable rights. And among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But my pursuit of happiness was hindered by those criminals that are committing crimes against us. How can I ever catch up with my happiness?
I know what you mean, Tom. Hey, Tom, I'm right up against the seventh inning stretch. I appreciate your calling.
I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Always a pleasure, Tom. Right after the seventh inning stretch, I'm going to get to you, Gabe. So have a good stretch, and then we'll come right back to you.
We know too well the inconvenience of not having power after a storm. You worry about food in the freezer going bad. Nights get hot. It's hard finding comfort when going to sleep. These are realities. But with solar and battery storage from Micronesia Renewable Energy, these realities can be a thing of the past. The solar works during the day and the batteries power your home at night. Call 632-2613 to see how solar plus battery storage can make life a little more convenient. MRE. The smarter choice.
So, Gabe, here you are right after the seventh inning stretch. I hope you had a good stretch.
Absolutely wonderful stretch, thank you.
All right.
Okay, what I'm calling about is, obviously Ray goes on in the mornings about our judicial system being the problem with the revolving door. And it's very true. They can't argue that one bit. But another thing is how these people are, what they're charged with. Now, to me, it's aggravated assault is what these machete guys are being hit with. And I always consider a machete a deadly weapon. I mean, assault, aggravated assault, that's a fight. You come with a machete, that takes a man's life in a second. And this is so inappropriate, it's ridiculous. And these guys will be out in no time. I mean, even if they go through the full thing, because all it is aggravated assault, that's no big deal.
I hear what you're saying, Gabe.
Yeah, it's to me, it's the whole system. It's not just judicial, It's what. And how about this guy that was shooting the pets here a few months ago? I mean, you shoot my family pet, that's a family member. And what happened? Well, nothing. I mean, anyway, it's a joke. And whether our judicial system gets it that everybody's just laughing at them, and I don't know. But anyway, I'll get off the phone and I'll just listen to your comments on it.
I appreciate you calling in, Gabe. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, and then I had him, but I lost him. Yeah, that was John. Yeah, maybe he's calling back. Yeah, is that John? Okay. Afternoon, John.
Hi, Bob. Man, so sad. My friend is a victim of a machete, and he's so young. They had a fight, and he was hit, but I don't think the police were called since it was like family. But anyways, that's so sad.
Oh, your friend was one of the victims, John?
Well, on another episode.
Different. Okay, I got it. Yeah.
And just listening to listening to your beautiful show and informative. You got to keep it up. Okay. And that's true. Legislators don't want to hear the show because you're going after them. But anyways, yeah, my my friend's sad. He was hit. Hasn't been back to work. But another note, last week Friday, we had a group of fishermen went right into the preserve up at Serena Beach by Patty Point. And we coded in, and I don't think they could have done anything because no boat, no enforcement.
So the guys got away with it, huh?
Yeah, it's just sad, but that's reality.
Yeah.
For now, I mean, there's so many other issues in Guam that are not being enforced or laws. But just wanted to bring that up. That it's all recorded and nothing happened.
Well, thanks very much for calling in and reporting that, John. We'll keep doing our part here at Tall Tales. And let's see, I've got another call here. I've got is this not the Ray? No, not the real Ray. It's just a Ray? Okay. Good afternoon, Ray.
Good afternoon. This is the other Ray.
The other Ray, okay.
I'm the Ray that calls about CCU and these mini brownouts, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I was listening to you, and I was not going to call about an issue that I had this morning, but I decided to because I wanted to make a comment about the second to the last guy who talked about aggravated assault.
Yeah.
My thought when I first heard about the machete incident was, for me, it's like attempted murder. I mean, if they got into those cars and they had those machetes, don't you think that that would be like, especially when it was described that they were either drunk or in drugs and they had that glazed look in their eyes like they really want to hurt somebody. And then when you have that and the machete, I would take it to the limit and say, hey, that's attempted murder.
Well,
right?
interesting.
That's a serious felony.
Interesting that you say that, Ray, because, our Tall Tales international radio listening audience, truth-gathering posse, is on all of these things like a duck on a June bug. And I'm looking at a post from James Howard who says, the PDN report just came out, attempted murder and other felonies.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
It does.
And like the second to the last guy saying that, we got to take it to the max. One of the things that we need to do is make a statement that, hey, those kind of things, man, we're going to take that seriously. We're not going to just give you an easy charge that you can just all of a sudden the next day you can go back and do the same thing over and over again. Yeah, I think there's something wrong with our judicial system, and that needs to be fixed. I'm going through something like that myself, and I'm going, hey, this is kind of like a scam. Why is the legal system not working for the people? But with that said, okay, done. This morning I woke up at 8 o'clock. My light was on. 8 o'clock in the morning, my light was on. So I have a timer on my light. It comes on at 7, shuts off at 12, comes on at 5, shuts off at 6. So at 8 o'clock in the morning, I go, what the heck? Why is my light on? The timer was off. You know what that meant? It meant that there was a power outage somewhere along the line. I checked my aircon, and it showed PF, power failure. So again, I'm counting the issues with this. That will cost us money. These mini power outages will cost the consumer money because what that does is it strains the motors in our electrical systems, and that you may not think about it, but when your refrigerator goes out all of a sudden, replace it. But do you think that, hey, maybe these mini power outages are causing that, And so why should we give someone thousands of dollars of money that could have been, saved by making sure that these mini power failures don't occur because we're taking money out of our pocket and just giving it away, basically, right, with these pay raises. So my argument is don't give any pay raise until these mini power failures stop.
I think probably a lot of people would join you in that argument, Ray. Ordinarily, you know, in the private industry, you get more money because you're making more money for your boss, which means that you're serving your boss's customers better. And that doesn't always seem to be the case here.
Right. One last comment. You read the performance evaluation of that individual. I don't know his name, but my thought about it is there were not any quantifiable measures. You know, lowered the cost of performance measures by 19% or 20%, but instead it had nice words like he was very good and he did his great job and everything else. For me, that doesn't say much about a person's performance. When you talk about numbers, that's the what do you call this? The universal language.
But you know, Ray.
Tell you a lot.
You know, Ray. Lawyers are a little bit harder to do evaluations for on a quantitative basis, because an awful lot of what a lawyer does isn't measurable. Sometimes it's like the real Joe Cruz is always saying, it's not what happened, it's what didn't happen that shows you the mark of a good lawyer. So, but I hear you as far as the ones that are actually in the power production or water pumping business.
Right.
Yeah, fewer outages, etc.
Yeah, that's just an example. You know, with my experience, that quantifiable measures in an evaluation is more. You can't argue against it because it's numbers that could be verified.
But given the recording, given the recording of the executive session, even the number one wasn't mentioned. It was more along the lines of, well, yeah, let's give this guy that much and him and it was a kind of a Kentucky windage approach to salary increases. It would have been if they had met in open session and done what you suggest. Probably, I'd have to find something else to talk about today, right?
Right. And that's really sad. But this is going to continue on and on. As we continue to get these mini power outages and 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there. I'm going to continue to make noise and say, hey, there's a real problem, right?
Well, you know where to come if you want to make noise, Ray.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
Have a great day.
Thanks for calling, Ray. All right. Well, there's I guess, something less than a satisfied customer there of the Power Authority. Let's see, I've got about 18 more minutes to go. I got, 3 minutes till the home stretch? A little longer than that, huh? I guess I got enough time to start Tall Tales versus the right wing. And I suppose that some people are going to listen to this Tall Tales versus the right wing. That sounds like incest. It's kind of like Bob reaches out and punches himself in the face, right? Right-wing I got to tell you where I got this. I got it off salon.com. Not exactly your hardcore right-wing website. It's pretty far to the left. I read it every day. I like to find out what's going on at all parts of the political spectrum, if for no other reason to find out what the other guy, what idiocy the other guys are up to. Probably. I don't have to read the funny papers anymore because I follow AOC quite regularly. But this is how the article goes. Right-wing extremism threatens the security, safety, and prosperity of countries around the world. Democracies, especially those in crisis, are especially vulnerable to right-wing extremism when it hides behind the benign-sounding banner of populism. One right-wing extreme of the global right-wing movement are terrorists and other evildoers, such as Nazis or white supremacists, who recently attacked mosques and synagogues in New Zealand, Pittsburgh, and Southern California. On the other extreme are respectable, that's in quotes, right-wing politicians who use normal politics to take power In the middle of this continuum are many millions of people who are either active members of the new right or are sympathetic to its goals and aims. Horror of horrors. In total, right-wing extremism is a multi-spectrum threat which extends from the President of the United States all the way down to street hooligans. So were the Manguilo machete wielders, were they right-wing hooligans? Right-wing extremisms? Extremists? Probably. And then, of course, we got the obligatory Donald Trump bashing here from the mayor of London, a person named Sadiq Khan, Sadiqkhan. He's the mayor of London. And he says Donald Trump is one of the most egregious examples of a growing global threat. The far right is on the rise around the world, threatening our hard-won rights and freedoms and the values that we have defined our liberal democratic societies for more than 70 years. And then he talks about Viktor Orban in Hungary, Matteo Salvini in Italy, Marine Le Pen in France, Nigel Farage in UK, are using the same divisive tropes of the fascists of the 20th century to garner support, but are using new sinister methods to deliver their message. And they are gaining ground and winning power and influences in places that would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. So you can see what the threat is here if you follow European politics at all. The list of people that I read off are often referred to as nationalists, which in somebody's dictionary is a synonym for white supremacist. And of course, anytime you could use the word white in a sentence, you know that there's a lot of condemnation following. So, in response to several high-profile incidents involving Nazis amongst its ranks, the British Ministry of Defense, in conjunction with the British Army, developed a chart to help officers identify right-wing extremists. I didn't know there were a lot of Nazis in the ranks of the British Army. I guess it's a good thing I read Salon, especially sitting here on the 6th of June, 2019, remembering what happened on the 6th of June in 1944. Do you remember that, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir.
What was it called?
It was a cold day.
Yeah, what was it called? Do you remember?
D-Day.
D-Day, yeah.
We stormed the beaches of Normandy.
Absolutely, yeah. So here's this guy, Sadiq, what's his name? Sadiq Khan, talking about the British Army and the Nazis in the British Army. And then he talks about the British Army has developed a chart to help officers identify right-wing extremists. This chart, right-wing extremists, was developed in 2017 and circulated as a leaflet for officers in the British military. Its existence became public last week when a copy appeared on right-wing websites. See, there you go. The British Ministry of Defense has confirmed the authenticity of the chart, but they didn't want anybody to know about it. The XRW chart contains 20 examples of behavior which could indicate right-wing extremist values and suggest that a person is being radicalized into joining that dangerous movement. Right-wing extremists. So let's see, there are 20 on the list, and I've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10. I've got 11 of them here. So I'm going to take the test, and I would invite you all to take the test too, and hold me to my answers here. If you think I'm trying to bola on one of the answers, chime in here on Facebook. I'm peeking out of the corner of my eye here. Jesse Limtiaco can't resist. Met some crazy right-wingers So crazy they want to see AOC dead. I knew I had to leave and stay as far away from those people. Well, you're right on that. You're absolutely correct on that one, Jesse. So here is the first item on the list. Some of these warnings are, here's number one. These people describe themselves as patriots. Ugh. So if you ever run into somebody, you know, and you're in a casual conversation, you might try to slide this in kind of surreptitiously, see if you can catch that person unawares. Talk about patriotism and say, are you a patriot? And if he says yes, well, then you know. Okay, we're coming up here on the home stretch. I'm going to run this down to the home stretch, and that'll be it for another exciting educational episode of Tall Tales.
Here at APL, our core values give the company its heart and soul. Whether it's connecting your business with our global network through our newly enhanced service or investing our efforts into giving back to the community, APL is committed to serving you. We humbly honor the opportunity to find innovative solutions for you and your business. To learn more about our enhanced service, call 588-4651 or visit www.apl.com/Guam for more details.
The sky's the limit with Bank Pacific's secure MyCloud banking. You can access your account 24/7 with your smartphone, your computer, your iPad, or any other tablet. You can pay bills, set up alerts, check your balances, wire transfer money. It's never been easier. Enroll online or come on in and see one of our friendly staff. Digital Life, Digital Solutions. Bank Pacific.
Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender, member FDIC. Viva Bank Pacific.
So here we are, home stretch, Churchill Downs, call to the post. We've got about 8 more minutes of Tall Tales to go, wrapping up another exciting, educational, informative episode of the top-rated FM radio afternoon radio talk show in the Western Pacific. But we'll be back tomorrow at 4 o'clock. So the first item here on this list, this chart, that suggests a person is being radicalized into joining a dangerous movement. Number one, people like that describe themselves as patriots. So just before the break there, I said, what you need to do then is get into a conversation, kind of distract the person you're talking to, get him thinking about something else, you know, about the colors of the flag or what a nice day it is or something like that, and just kind of slide this one in, you know, are you a patriot? And unless the person says, no, I'm not a patriot, then you want to start being suspicious, because if he's a patriot, he very well might be a right-wing extremist, kind of like the Nazis in the British Army. Second item. A person refers to political correctness as some left-wing or communist plot. So if you know a person that when you're talking to them are down on political correctness and are critical of them for being politically correct, better watch out, because that person might be a right-wing extremist. Now, if you listen to somebody who is constantly carping about the corruption of the English language, the way we've done away with correct third-person singular pronouns, so that if I were to refer to the real Joe Cruz here in the control room, in order to be politically correct, I have to say, they are behind their microphone right now. I'm constantly carping about that and all of the other things that the left has done to our language in the name of political correctness, attaching it to things like cultural Marxism, neo-Marxism, and the Frankfurt School. So I guess according to this test, I might be a right-wing extremist. And if I were to join the British Army, I don't know if they'd take somebody my age, but if I were to join the British Army, they would put me in the Nazi battalion, no doubt, because of my attitudes about political correctness. Here's another one. That kind of person would describe multicultural towns as lost. I haven't ever done that, because it's a good reason I haven't done that, Real Joe Cruz. So I haven't thought of it. But, so many people have seen this video about Seattle and what a dump it's turned into. Now, I used to really like Seattle. I used to really like to go there. And it's turned into a real dump. And it never occurred to me to say that Seattle is lost. But I'm going to say it now. Seattle is lost. And you heard Jim call in the other day taking me to task for not giving the CCU a break, for, not letting up on the CCU, which I'm not going to do. But and then he pointed out Los Angeles, they've got typhus and they've got typhoid. And you read up about Los Angeles, it's turning into a dump also. So I guess I've been there recently. The parts I've been to weren't so bad, so I probably shouldn't be too quick to call it a dump. To call it lost. But if it's lost, I'm going to call it lost. I'm not going to do some kind of a census and count. I'm not going to play the identity politics game myself and figure out how many different identity groups are in that city. But I suppose that makes me a potential right-wing extremist, because the only reason I haven't used the word lost is because I haven't thought of it. Next item. Looks at opponents as traitors. Yeah, let's see here. I've got our Carl on the line. Let's see how our Carl does on this test here. Good afternoon, our Carl.
Hey, good afternoon, Bob. Yeah, I'd just like to chime in what I think is really the deciding factor between left and right, and I believe that's freedom. I saw a video one time that showed the different political systems based on a horizontal line. To the extreme right is more freedom. To the far right is anarchy. Little to the left of that is where we should be, a constitutional republic. And all the way to the far left is total government control, socialist, communist, Marxist. And I think that's really the final deciding line. The Nazis, although they're called far right, were actually a leftist organization. Nazi is an acronym for National Socialist German Workers' Party. It was a socialist, a leftist organization. So I believe the real deciding factor is personal freedom. Anything that destroys personal freedom is a movement to the left, and anything that gives us more personal freedom is a movement to the right.
Okay, Carl, I can't say that I disagree with anything you say, and give you really high marks for timing. You got in just at the end of the program, so thank you. And we'll see you tomorrow, our Carl, and all the rest of our international radio listening audience. I will continue on with the right-wing extremist test tomorrow. Goodbye.
point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Thank yous this morning in France, from the world to D-Day veterans. I'm Carmen Roberts.